grandfather, they probably...
They only had third and fourth grade education. So, I mean, they did the best they could do, but it wasn't enough at that time.
Yeah.
And then Carlos was a big follower of mine. And I asked Carlos 20 years later. I said, Carlos, man, when I got out of...
So who was Carlos?
Alice, my Aunt Alice Barnett, that's her husband.
Okay.
He was a big sports buff. That's Harley's father.
That's Harley Barnett's father.
That's Harley Barnett's father. And I asked Carlos 20 years later, I said, why wasn't you there when I had all them scholarships and stuff? I didn't know do it. He said, I never knew that you didn't have nobody to tell you what to do.
How to move.
He thought that, he told me, he said, what you call the people in school supposed to help you?
Counselor.
Right. He said, I thought you had a counselor or something, man. He said, I didn't know. So if you don't know, you don't know. So 18 scholarships kind of went down the drain. But it was a learning experience, man. It's all good, I remember one year we broke the record, and the president of Ohio State came out there and said, hey, you guys broke...
President of Ohio State?
Yeah, the president.
Or like the committee for high school?
No, I'm talking about Ohio State College, Ohio State Columbus. The president came out there and said, you guys broke the record, but there's two reasons we can't give you the record. You're the wrong color, and the wind is blowing.
Just like that?
Just like that. He told it to the whole team, plus the coach was there.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that was in
his feelings, or that's how he was saying, that's how the people felt?
That's just how it was back then. I mean, racial was still in full bloom at that time.
Racial problems.
Facial problems, right. But he got power, and he's the president of Ohio State athletic team.
That's systematic racism.
Well, it is.
Because basically you got a record. What you're saying is you had a record.
We broke the record.
Broke the record, but it wasn't given to you.
No, he said.
So that record could have still be standing this day. I'm just saying.
We still got the record for a second, but we really broke the record about 3 or 4 seconds. And he said, we can't give, in so many words, he said, you done it.
It put you a second and took time off.
Right.
Added time.
Right.
Added time.
It took less time off. We shot at the record. That stadium went crazy that day. It went, crazy.
Where was it at? It was at Ohio State?
Ohio State, Columbus.
Okay.
At the stadium where they play the football game and stuff at.
At the shoe.
Yeah. And that's what he said. Matter of fact, I got the trophy downstairs right now and the picture.
Dang, that's crazy.
So then I want to get married. And to Linda Cheney, her dad was named Lindsay Cheney. Linda was brown skinned, and her dad was real light. Her mom was dark like me. Her mom was crazy about me, but the dad didn't like me because he said I was too dark to marry his daughter. And not only that, when I was dating his daughter, he shot me a lot of times with a gun because he told me to stay away from his daughter, and I didn't. So he shot me like 2 or 3 times at different occasions. But I was quick then, and I would be running like a zigzag way, so none of the bullets hit me. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I wanted to marry his daughter, but he said, you're too dark to marry my daughter. So after a while, I was kind of left her alone, and then I got married to Marilyn, my second wife. Well,
so the kids was your daughter,
my first wife,
Nikki, and
Kenny.
Kenny was by
Marilyn.
Okay.
Marilyn was Kenny and Nikki's mom, and I did marry her. Okay. And we stayed together like 3 or 4 years, and it didn't work out. My grandma told me it wouldn't work out. She said her mom never been married, and she had 4 or 5 aunts, and none of them been married. And I told my grandma just like yesterday, I said, Mom, you don't know what you're talking about. And she said, I'm telling you, Tyrone, she said, it ain't gonna work. So my grandma was right. 2 or 3 years later, We had 2 children, and
She saw the family, how they moved.
right,
Basically, she saw
and
that family. What they somebody say a family curse.
right, yeah.
She saw the tradition.
Yeah, she said her mom ain't been married, and she got 4 or 5 sisters, and none of them been married. She said, you're going to have the same problem with her, too. We got married. I moved out of Lincoln Heights to try to solve the problem, to out there in Kennedy Heights. Still didn't solve the problem. So, you know, she has had that streak in her where she wanted to kind of do her own thing, so I let her go. So then, after that, I stayed single for probably 8 or 9 years. Then I married my second wife, which was Sandra Miller, who I'm married to today, who we've been together almost 50 years. And that type deal. So me and my wife, Sandra Miller, we had 2 siblings. She had 3 when I married her. Diane, Tony, and Paris, which are my children. And then we had 2 biological children, which was Toya and Kevin.
Got you.
And I started working. I was working at Avon for a minute, and Avon kept laying me off. And at that time, I was staying with Castella. And I remember a long time ago, I was supposed to go down to Jennings Buick and buy a brand new car on a Monday. And me and Chris Crawford, which was my partner, Allstate had a pony keg in Lincoln Heights on Stephen Street. And Chris said, man, you want to go in there and try to win some money? I said, I don't know, man. Chris had about 500 on him, and I had about, I think, 100 on me. And Allstate, he owned a pony keg, so he had a shopping bag full of money. So we went in there, we was playing dice. And I was winning a little money, and then I lost, and then Chris was winning money, then he lost. Then I sent up there to Castella, my aunt, to get my car money, which is almost $2,000. And I make a long story short, I lost the $2,000 gambling, shooting dice, trying to get big money. Big money always eat up little money, because he can lose a whole lot of times. He still got a lot of money still to regroup. Once I lose my little money, I ain't got nothing to regroup with. So that incident, I didn't get my new Buick the next day like I was supposed to, and I was not a happy camper for about 2 or 3 months. And I told my aunt what happened. She said, I told you. She didn't fuss at me and do none of that. She said, I told you you shouldn't have did it. So I didn't get my new car, and I'm still working now trying to regroup and blah, blah, this and that. And I want Earl Saturday.
You shoot dice after that?
No. And not only that, after I lost, I said, Allstate. I said, man, let me have a little something to roll with till I get back on my feet. He said, I can't do it because it's my bill money. So after that day, I never gambled again. So it was a good lesson for me. Good lesson.
Yeah.
I lost my money. Didn't get my new car. I did eventually get my new car 6-7 months later, but I didn't get it at that time. And then I worked at Avon, kept getting laid off. And then my mom, she used to work for the people in the Indian Hill. His name was Mark Fuller. And he was the president of Champion Paper Company. And also his brother-in-law was the president of HVC in St. Bernard. At this time, me and my wife, we was living in the apartments out there off of Hopper Street, off Beekman. And he came to me, my mom, I was working in Indian Hill for a while, helped cutting grass and stuff for Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller came to me and said, hey, you want a real job? And I said, yeah. He said, you could either work at Champion Paper Company or you could work at my buddy's company in St. Bernard. And I called Mark Fuller, and Mark said, go to work tomorrow. Tell him I sent you. See Jeff Mefford. I never put in an application. I went to work. I was there for 41 years.
Wow. Okay.
And they taught Mark Fuller, who my mom used to work for in the Hill, he told me all the structure about finances, how to get a house, the whole from piece to piece. He stayed with me the whole 9 yards.
What made him go out with you? Like what?
Because my mom was basically their nanny.
And they had a respect for her.
Right. And my mom used to like clean house for them and help take care of the children.
She must have been doing something right.
Right. I mean, at that time, my mom probably was in her, I don't know, I'm thinking late 30s, 40s.
Okay.
And she told me I didn't have a job because I got laid off from Avon, and I worked for him for a while, and then I started working at his brother-in-law's company down in St. Bernard, and I was there for 41 years.
Wow.
But Mr. Fuller, he told me about finances, how to get a house, how to save your money, and don't get a lot of credit cards and a whole lot of debt. And I kind of learned from him. You know, I got in a lot of debt after I bought my house because he told me, don't try to furnish it all at one time. And I did, and that was an omen because I had more bills to pay. I had more bills than money to pay. And at that age, at that time, I'm only like, I don't know, 29, and it took my hair out right here and never grew back. Stress. But it was good. Then I kept that house for 15 years. Then I bought a house in Forest Park. I stayed there for 3 or 4 years on Nathaniel. And then I had this house built, which I'm in now, in '99, and I've been here ever since '99 to 2023.
Okay. I was gonna go back.
Go ahead.
You said I was going back to your children as far as genetics. You had a son, Tyrone Jr.
Yeah, Tyrone, he ran track. He ran cross country. And the difference between me and Tyrone, we basically same person. But Tyrone, parents and myself too, they pushed him to go to college. So he went to Ohio State for 5 years, then he went back and got his doctorate degree. And his mom, she didn't go to college.
That's interesting. Years later. So when did he go to Ohio State?
Tyrone went to Ohio State probably in
1990. That's interesting. So you went to state
in 70.
So 20 years later,
he went for cross country.
The same school that told you,
right?
Or I ain't gonna say the school, but that representative
right.
of the school told you that y'all couldn't have a record for high school because you wanted the right
color. Right.
And the wind was blowing.
You got it.
But it's funny. It's ironic. I would say that 20 years later,
Tyrone went there.
You had a son that was talented enough to go to Ohio State and run track.
And also, he had the records for 4 years in a row for cross country. Basically, me and my son, basically, father-son is the only father-son in the history of black at Ohio State. They got records for like that. Mine was from 67 to 70. His was from 90 to 95.
So when he went to Ohio State, did he do long distance or middle distance?
No, he did long distance.
Okay, I don't know why I thought he did middle distance.
No, he was a long distance man. Okay. He killed him. Everywhere he went, he came in first place all the time.
Wow.
5 years in a row. So like I say, me for 70s and him for the 90s, we the only father-son in the history of Ohio State that done that.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. So, moving forward, what would you say turned you over to as an adult? What turned you over to the Lord? Why Christ?
Well, when we stayed at my grandma's house back in 56 to 65. We went to church out there. We had to go to church every Sunday, and we had poems we did for the Easter and the whole night. My grandma, she was a church-fearing lady. And my grandfather didn't go a whole lot. He went every now and then, but we went every Sunday. So we was instead to go to church from little kid to teenage. We went to church, and everything. And when we went to church back then, we would always have to tarry for the Holy Ghost. And Deb and Marie, they did get the Holy Ghost. When they was like 12, 11, 13 years old, they got the Holy Ghost. But when I be tarrying at the church, and they say supposed to be talking in tongues, that never happened to me. And I had a problem. I said, why is that happening to everybody else and it happening to me? I said, it's got to be more to it than this right here, because I believe in God, and I know God is real, because my situation, he done brought me through it. And
situation.
For us, at 1206 Chambers Street, we stayed in the back room that didn't have no windows in it. We had a lot of quilts, but the room itself didn't have no windows in it. It had plastic up to the wall. And I prayed as a child. I said, God, when I get older and can take myself, give me a warm place to stay and a good family. That was my prayer. Because back there in that room, man, once